This episode was crazy, guys. This was wild. To say that everything hit the fan in this episode is an understatement. This was wild. There's so much to talk about today. I really didn't want this to be a long video today. Oh, so much crazy stuff happened. From Iris, we gotta talk about Iris. Iris got embarrassed, man. It's crazy. We knew she would, but like that though? Wild. Rose. The implications with Rose moving forward. Things are crazy. How many times have I said that this episode? That's how you know it's a good episode, guys. So strap in, because we're going to talk about the Eminence in Shadow episode 19 today. It was wild. Now, our episode today begins with us really breaking down exactly who Iris Midgar is as a character. As we see that throughout her entire life, her whole life, she's always strived to be the best, to be the strongest, to do whatever she can to prove herself. And we see the challenges that come with that, and with being a princess, as we hear, the local citizens can handle restoring public order in those remote regions. There's no reason you should have to travel all the way out there to help, princess. After all, it wouldn't be good to take work away from the Dark Knights Association. There's more important things for you to be doing. As we see her going through the town, but we know that's not what she wants. She wants to fight. She just wants to be a knight. And it's here we see her remembering what Alpha told her, saying, be a good audience member and content yourself with sitting back and enjoying the show. As we see the countless times that Iris has felt powerless to do something as well. It's here as we go back to the Divine Teachings incident. This is proven again as the king tells her, no, we're not going to do anything about this. Even going so far as to tell her, it sounds like you're so desperate to prove yourself right that you are willing to put the kingdom in danger. As Iris tells herself, I will prevail. I will triumph. And I find this really interesting because her whole life she's tried to prove to everyone around her that she's not powerless, that she can be the one to burden everything. And now that she has the hopes of everyone on her shoulders, the pressure's kind of crushing down. It's kind of funny because if you think about it, her and Sid are kind of polar opposites. Sid wants nothing more but to be a background character, and Iris wants to be front and center. She wants to be the focus. She wants to be the person everyone turns to and relies on in situations. The hope of the kingdom, if you will. And right now she is. And all that weight is crushing her right now. And it's not going to end well. But it's here we're going to transition to a more lighthearted scene for right now, as we see our boy Sid sitting in the stands, because Claire basically pressured him to do it, as he says, man, once you get the hang of these VIP seats, they sure are handy. Now, my prayers must have been answered from last week, because who should arrive in this moment to sit next to him, but of course, Iris. As Iris asks him, so are you here to cheer for Claire again today? As Sid says, yeah, she almost strangled me last time. I didn't really have a choice. But it's here all of a sudden. We see a knight and a butler trying to stop this mysterious looking woman. I wonder who this could be. As Iris walks up and says, no, it's all right, guys. I invited her. As she says, welcome, Beatrix the War Goddess. And I kind of love that Sid right here is like, man, I would absolutely love it if people said, isn't he the legendary to me? And I think it's kind of hilarious that they sit down next to him and people approach them and Sid's like, wait a minute. Now that I think about it, this might be the most background character-y I've ever been. A background character. In the background of background characters surrounding named characters. I love it. And it's here one of the background characters asks Beatrix if there's any competitors in the tournament that's caught her interest, and she says, Sid. And our boy don't look happy about that. As she says, Sid has caught my attention. I'm sure he's gonna grow even stronger. And I kind of love how absolutely no one believes her. Not a single person. Even Iris is like, well, if that's what Lady Beatrix thinks, then I'm certain she must be right. Maybe? Kinda? As our background characters are like, wow, is this clueless woman really the war goddess? She doesn't look like she could fight worth beans herself either. But our boy Sid has a better eye than them, and he thinks differently as he says, she definitely seems to have what it takes to be called a war goddess. Her looks, her personality, her title, and even her strength. Everything about her is perfectly natural and unembellished. That's why no one can see how powerful she really is. She's literally like a female Sid, basically. That's what she is. But it's here as we transition to our next scene. We're going to really start breaking down exactly what Asshat's plan is, as we see him giving the medicine to the king as he says, I have no complaints about the efficiency of this drug. But can we stop it from making his body odor so sickeningly sweet? It's a dead giveaway. As he says, all it takes is one little drug and you're reduced to a puppet that can only do as he is commanded. I truly pity you, your highness. But let me reassure you, I have no doubt that your dear little Rose will come back to save her poor, pitiful father. As he says, if she'd been a good girl and given me the key, I wouldn't have minded letting her roam free. But alas. As he says, oh wait, she was already showing signs of possession, so that makes her prime material for the cult's experimentation. She would have ended up in our custody either way. Whoops. And as they start walking with each other, we start breaking down his plan, as he says, even assuming that Rose might fail to appear. In that case, I only have to use this puppet to slay the king of Midgar. If that happens, there's going to be war between the two kingdoms, and Oriana will likely be destroyed. But that doesn't matter. The arrangements are already in place to install a puppet leader as the next king of Midgar. As he says, I'll have the highest chance of killing him if I act during Iris Midgar's match. But this mundane man, I looked into his background and I found nothing. I have no doubt he's a resident of the underworld, and one in a very dangerous position at that. What purpose could he have coming out into the light? As he says, I've deployed the greatest numbers of soldiers I can, but now I'm worried about Shadow Garden. It would appear that they're working in conjunction with Rose, meaning they're working together. And I kind of love in this scene, as he's literally inner monologuing to himself, he just walks by Beatrix and she tells him, yo, you stink, man. You freaking reek. She even tells that to the king. And of course, he's going to pretend to act offended as Iris says, please, I invited her. She's my guest. She's Beatrix the War Goddess. And upon hearing that, he gets shook. As he quickly tells her, oh, I'm sorry, I had no clue who you were. Please relax and enjoy the festival. But once they walk away, he's like, it's the fucking war goddess? Seriously? What's she doing here of all places? I have to try to eliminate her somehow. But how can I? She's even better with a sword than Iris is. But as Asshat's worrying his ass off up in the stands, we transition to Iris in this moment, going to her match as we see everyone is cheering her on. The whole kingdom basically is cheering her on in this moment. As she says, these cheers are my strength and my mission. As long as we have Iris Midgar, the kingdom will be safe. As she says, I need them to think that and to keep thinking that. As we see that Iris is absolutely determined to prove herself here once and for all. And it's here we transition to the fight, as she says, mundane man. He is, without a doubt, a powerful opponent. Even standing face to face with him, I can't sense an iota of strength from him. But there's something about him, something unfathomable. Nevertheless, I think I can win. I'll give it everything I've got as soon as the match starts. And the second the match begins, we see Iris's head clean cut off her body. But that's not what happened. As we see Iris basically run backwards away from him. She even trips and rolls on the ground. That's how intense that was. As she says, I was sure he just cut my head off. As Sid tells her, you're not attacking? And she realizes that, wait a minute, I just backed away from him. I just made myself look like a fool. As she says, I instinctually sensed my death. As she draws her sword and says, I can't be afraid. Fear makes your enemy even more powerful. And as she calms herself and lines herself up for her next attack, we see her leg get cut off this time. As she says, he cut me? Is it an illusion somehow? As she says, but he definitely reached me, as she realizes. That means that this entire arena is in his sword's striking range. But we'll come back to the fight in a second. I know you guys will hate me for that. As we transition to Rose, actually, in the venue. As she says, I've almost reached the VIP seats, but I haven't seen a single security guard. I wonder where they could be. And boy, do we not ask that question for long, as we see that all of the guards have been taken care of. And we realize they were actually the cult of Diablos in disguise. And it's here as we see the sudden appearance of Shadow Guard, and Rose says, I knew it was you guys. As Beta tells her, go forward and fulfill your mission. Now, what does this scene entail, you might ask? I don't know. Maybe I'll have to tell you guys next week and not now. And as we transition back to Iris's and Sid's fight, Iris is getting more and more freaked out as she says it's his eyes and the slight shift in his center of gravity. Those tiny changes are enough to make me hallucinate that he struck me. It's not some trick that relies on an artifact. It is most definitely his own true skill. I know that. But if he can do that, that would make him the world's most powerful person. But it's here all of a sudden she starts hearing the rumblings from the crowd, as they say. She just keeps staggering back and forth across the arena. As they say, don't tell me she's afraid. And upon hearing that, Iris gets heated. She starts going full throttle as she says, don't let him confuse you. Whether they're illusions or real sword strikes, I will strike them all down together. As she charges directly at Sid, full power. But it's in this moment, Iris knew she fucked up. As she realizes that Sid hasn't even drawn his sword this whole time. As she thinks to herself, was this an illusion too? But then realizes, no. Everything else was. A leading gaze and slight movements of his body were all it took to make me see things that weren't there. All just to make me think he was holding his sword. As we see Sid literally swat her sword aside with his hand and choke slam her into the ground. As he puts his sword to her throat and says the words that are going to be the nail in her coffin. What's wrong? We're just getting started. Aren't we? Iris Midgar. And upon hearing this, Iris's world shatters. Everything she's fought for, everything she's tried to accomplish is shattered in an instant by the whims, and I mean whims, of one man. And I think one of the worst parts about this is that upon seeing this, her father, the king, just leaves. He doesn't even stay. He just up and leaves. That tells you all you need to know right there. But it's here Asshat says, impossible. Iris Midgar defeated before she could make a single move? As he says, not even the strongest Dark Knight I know would be capable of a stunt like that. Such a thing shouldn't even be possible. As we see even Beatrix is captivated as she says, what an amazing technique. I want to fight him myself. And it's here in this moment, things start getting even crazier as we see that Rose is here now on the scene. Now Asshat is relieved. He thinks everything is going as planned as he says, oh, so you finally decided to come back to us, my dear Princess Rose. As he even taunts her with her father yet again. As Rose tells him, Father, I've come to apologize for everything I've done and everything I'm about to do. I've made mistakes, and I'm sure I will make at least one more. But as the princess of the Oriana Kingdom, and as your daughter, I will follow the path I believe in. And it's here for a moment. Her father breaks the mind control and smiles at her and says, I forgive you for all of your sins. As Rose actually starts crying upon hearing this. as she says, "Thank you, father," and charges at them. But Asshat uses her father as a shield. And it's in this moment the craziest scene of the episode happens. She stabs her own father. And his last words to her were, "I love you." And I'm going to tell you guys right now, I didn't expect that. This scene was wild to me. When I saw this, I couldn't believe it. And we see that Asshat can't believe it either, as he says, "You would kill your own father without a second thought?" But it's here Rose puts her sword to her own neck and says, "This is my final official act," meaning to kill herself now. And as the cult finally shows its true colors and comes out of hiding to stop her, we just hear, "Is that the choice you've made?" As all of a sudden, we see Sid come busting into the room and quickly make mincemeat of all of the cult members. And upon doing so, Rose remembers that he's the person that saved her from the past. As Sid says, "It's time to shed my disguise." And as he's trying to introduce himself, she says, "You're the stylish bandit slayer." And I love how everyone in the room is just like, who the fuck is that? As she says, "So you're the one with such beautiful fencing skills." And our boy Sid looks like he doesn't want to hear it at all. As she says, "From the day I first saw you wield your sword, I was determined to follow the path of a fencer myself." And it's here we finally see the scene that we've seen so many times throughout the season of how back in the day Sid saved her life when she was kidnapped and she watched everything unfold. And how this event drastically changed the course of her life and made her want to take up the sword because of it. And when he's done taking out the bandits, she's just like, "Man, what a rough day for you, huh? Be careful on your way home, by the way, alright?" As Rose is just like, "Alright, fuck that, who are you?" As Sid says, "Damn, that's a good question, who am I? I guess you could say I'm a stylish bandit slayer." And as we transition back to the present, she says, "Shadow, you were the stylish bandit slayer all along?" I feel like she's the only one that didn't know that at this point. As she says, "Even at that age, you continued to fight against evil. But I wanted to end my pain. I almost chose death. I still have the power to fight. But it's so hard. And I'm so scared." As Sid tells her, "Raise your head. Your fight is not yet ended." And as she takes one last look at her father, who she just murdered, by the way, she steals her resolve and runs off. And as Asshat's trying to stop her, Sid stops him in his tracks. As he says, "Where are my reinforcements at?" As we see that Shadow Garden has taken out everyone. And it's here in this moment, we get probably the hypest thing that could happen. Beatrix says, "I'll do it," and charges directly at him. And Sid is over the fucking moon happy about this as they start fighting. And as they actually leave the stadium to fight somewhere else, their swords clash, and our episode ends on the biggest cliffhanger ever! Now, this episode was crazy from start to finish, guys. It was actually insane. The complete and utter assassination of Iris as a character. Everything she stands for. Shattered. Destroyed. Whole world shattered. Gone. And we see Rose actually kill her father. And even I don't know exactly why that would happen. And I'm very curious to see that next week as we go into our final episode. And damn, does that suck to say, because I'm going to really miss this show when it's done. I don't want it to end, man. And I know a lot of you guys feel the exact same way. This episode was honestly kind of like the epitome of hype. So I would love to hear your guys' opinion on it down below, because this shit was crazy. But until next time, guys, when we get to our finale next week, I hate saying that. I hope you guys have a great day, week, month, and year. And until then, deuces, have a blessed day. Stay safe and stay healthy. I'll see you guys next time.